Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Geo-Institute live stream. We're very excited. We have new friends, brought in Aldoa from Brooklyn. They're going to talk to us today about geotechnical data management and reporting. Before we get to that, we've got a couple of housekeeping items, as we always do. My name is Brad Keeler. I'm the director of the Geo-Institute, and we are thrilled that you have selected to spend part of your Tuesday afternoon, or I guess whatever time it is where you are, with us. Weather is beautiful here at the palatial Keeler Estate in suburban Washington, D.C., and we have the windows open, but we are still continuing with the Geo-Institute Summer of Live. We have just a few more live streams to go before we switch it over to GI Fall, and we will be thrilled to have you continue with us at that time. If you don't know anything about the Geo-Institute, after you watch this presentation today, use your favorite internet connected device and head over to geoinstitute.org. There you will find out all kinds of things about us. And I mean, I guess your brain has to be open to receive the information, but I trust, dear viewers, that it will be. You will find out that we are a technical society with about 12,000 members, most of whom are geotechnical engineers and or geologists, and that we are part of the American Society of Civil Engineers. And if you like what you see today and it's data, we got some good people talking to you about it. You should click like, subscribe, and get notifications, and we will let you know every time we post something to the YouTube channel. One final thing before we kick it over to our moderator and our presenter. It is almost, viewers, the end of the fiscal year. If you have not made your contribution to Geo-Institute student programs, you should head over to geoinstitute.org and click the link. You can do that. We have some great thank you gifts, including, of course, the Ralph Peck bobbleheads. You do not want to miss out on that. Now, when I heard what we were going to be talking about today, there was one person that I thought of who would serve as the moderator for this. It is Alan Cadden of Schnabel Engineering, digs guru, data guy, data czar. Would you maybe be a czar?
Let's not go that far.
Kingpin? Could you be a kingpin? But here he is from somewhere in southeastern Pennsylvania to tell you what you're going to hear today. It is Alan Cadden. Alan, thank you for being here.
Hey, glad to join you again. So thanks. Hey, well, my role this morning or this afternoon is really just to introduce our speakers. So let's get right to it. Adam Loewentheil is the co-founder and president of Aldoa. Aldoa is a software company whose mission is to build modern solutions to save engineers, consultants, and technicians time and money. Prior to starting Aldoa, Adam first worked as a financial analyst in the New York City-based hedge fund, and then discovered the wonderful world of geotechnical engineering and materials testing while working in a real estate development industry. So we welcome Adam as our speaker today, and as Adam fills us in on what Aldoa is all about, please remember, if you have questions, put them in the chat box and we will get to them as he wraps up there. So with that, Adam, I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alan. I appreciate the intro. And while you're still there, I just want to make sure, technically, can you see the screen that I am sharing right now?
Yeah, it's coming up now.
All right.
You're live.
I am live. Awesome. Cool. Thank you, everyone. I know, as Brad said, for taking some time on your Tuesday afternoon or morning, wherever you are, to join us. I think this is going to be a pretty interesting and helpful conversation for you all. Regardless of what you are using for your data management when it comes to the geotechnical materials testing world, whether it's pen and paper, whether it's Excel, whether you're using software or a hodgepodge of all of these different solutions. Wanted to talk about a few things, and everything I'm talking about is sort of just from, I guess, my conversations from speaking with geotechnical engineers, geologists, hydrologists over the past 4 years of working at Aldoa. So as Alan said, we are a software company. We build solutions for geotechnical engineering firms, construction materials testing firms. And so I am happy to say that most of my job is just talking to people such as yourselves, technicians, lab managers, project managers, owners, operators, etc. And I like to think of myself as sort of a professional therapist of understanding what you hate about your job. So hopefully we can find ways to fix it. And one of the things that has always come up is just let's say the world of data management and reporting, right? Staying on top of all of your data, making sure you know where to find things, making sure things are streamlined, and saving time and money for your business. So quick little agenda for today. First, I want to talk about just problems with traditional methods of data collection and reporting and laboratory analysis. I'm going to make this conversation useful for anyone. If you are still using Excel, whatever it is, I will give you some tips and tricks as well, but I'm going to point out a few downfalls of those systems as well. Secondly, just through my conversations, we are certainly seeing I guess, increasing trend towards digital solutions. So as firms like yourselves are evaluating data management solutions, I'm going to highlight some key features to look out for, some pros and cons. There are a lot of solutions now for the first time ever that are actually purpose-built for geotechnical engineering firms, right? I know a lot of the early mobile applications used to be for like home inspectors, and you'd be trying to do boring logs and compaction tests on a tablet that's meant for taking photos. And now we actually have some really good software built for specifically geotechnical engineers and materials testing firms. So wanted to talk about some things that you'll find in the market, key features to look out for, etc. I am going to give a quick little demonstration of Aldoa. We, again, are a modern software provider built specifically around geotechnical workflows and materials testing workflows. So I'll dive in a little bit into that world, and we'll end with some Q&A. And I think this should be a really productive conversation for anyone who's thinking about sort of leveling up their organization's technological stack. Or if they want to just stick with what they're doing, at least understanding the downfalls of those systems. So starting off, I guess, with jumping right into sort of the problems associated with manual processes, outdated software, Excel, right? I think one of the big ones, which everyone is aware of, is the double entry and the accuracy issues, right? If you have a field technician presence and you are collecting data on pen and paper, right? Paper logs, notebooks, whatever it may be, and you have to get that into a digital copy to present a deliverable for a client or a regulator, you're going to have to transcribe that data back at the office. So two problems with this. One, even the best typers, you sometimes fat finger something and you put in a 9 when it should be an 8. And those errors can add up very quickly, as I'm sure you are all aware. And the second one is just the time it takes to actually retype that in. And not just like the actual 10, 15 minutes of typing up those handwritten notes, but sort of the lag time associated with it as well. So I know we are, right after Labor Day. It's still pretty busy right now when the weather's nice. We've been talking some field teams that are out 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, right? They don't really have time to go back to the office. So we hear of some project managers who are getting calls from clients saying, hey, I know you were on site yesterday. I have no idea what you did, where are your notes, observations, measurements, and the field team just hasn't had actual time to sort of upload those notes because they're slammed. So having software solutions that seamlessly sort of push that data from the field directly back to the office, it's not just reducing the time it takes to double entry, it's actually reducing that lag time, which can be a pretty big bottleneck for some projects. A second sort of major downfall of manual processes is just disconnection between different parts of your org. And the one I like to call out the most is obviously you have a field presence, and then some companies will have, most will have an office presence, some will have the lab as well. And we seem to hear over and over about some repetitive processes. So I'll do like Proctor curves as one example, right? You have a field team who's doing soil compaction testing, and they need to put in the comp curve, and they are manually entering in maximum dry density and optimum moisture content. Meanwhile, the lab has already calculated that separately, and all of those things are happening sort of simultaneously, but in separate systems, right? The lab manager may be using Excel for all of their calculations. And then the field teams are using, pen and paper or even the modern software, but disconnected from the labs. So that's another piece of just, yes, lab managers have a very different job than a geotechnical engineer or a field technician, but that data needs to seamlessly flow through all the different parts of the organization. So keep that in mind. The third piece is just sort of, and it's similar to that second piece, in terms of fragmentation of data. The most common thing we hear across this entire industry is a reliance on Microsoft Excel. There's also nothing wrong with that. I was a financial analyst. I lived in Microsoft Excel. When I was working in the real estate development world, I lived in Microsoft Excel. But that means I also know the problems with Excel, which is every document is sort of siloed, right? It's impossible or very difficult unless you're very good at macros and setting up some cross-sheet formulas of compiling information across different projects or even across different test results on the same project. We hear so many times of people who just can't track down that file because a project manager named it something different or put it into a separate folder. So having some real clear rules around naming conventions and organization is important, but even that doesn't take you all the way of what software can when it comes to data management. So again, I mentioned in my opening remarks that we are starting to see for the first time people really looking at software. And I think there's a few catalysts for this. One is that for the first time we are seeing software that is purpose-built for specific industries, right? This is called, in the world of vertical SaaS or vertical software, building software that's for specific industries versus 10 different industries that can use the tools. It allows you to build really purpose-built software, which is really compelling to a lot of geotechnical and materials testing teams, right? But even with that as the case, there are still some nuances to consider when you are evaluating software and going through the decision tree of, hey, is this better than Excel? Is this better than my existing solution? Is this gonna save time over pen and paper? So a few different key trends to call out. The first one is we tend to see software that is built either specifically around field teams or specifically around office and lab teams. And that's just something you need to be aware of and ask questions of. Where is the real bottleneck? Is it on collecting data? Is it processing that data and aggregating that data and generating compliance reports? Is it the laboratory side of things? And how does that data flow between those different departments? Because if you are not purchasing a solution that is truly all in one, there's still going to be some double entry required. It's still probably better to purchase a piece of the stack than doing everything manual, but these are just questions to consider. The second one is customization and flexibility. I'm going to talk about this one in more detail in a few minutes, but really ask yourself and ask vendors who you're talking to, does the solution I'm looking at adapt to my workflows, or am I going to have to adapt to new software? There is usually a middle ground that enables you to keep best practices and learn from best practices that vendors have learned from other firms. But I know a lot of firms want to have compliance with ASTM, AASHTO, other standards, but they also want to be able to put their branding on it and add their flair to it. So that is a trade-off to be aware of between customization and flexibility on one hand and compliance and standardization for your clients on the other. I sort of just went into, I'm going to skip the third bullet point and come back to it because I'm just talking about these standards. But again, can the software support reporting that is compliant with standards whilst giving you a little bit of flexibility? Very important questions to ask. And then the last one, or the third bullet point here, ease of use and training. Time is money. If you are spending 2 years to onboard onto a new solution, might not be the best idea. Yeah, I'll keep it at that, but you should really have open, honest conversations with anyone you're talking about and maybe ask for some references. How long did it take to implement these tools? Is it going to take my field tech 6 months to learn how to do this? Or is it something that I could get up and running in 30 days? because time is money. So before I go into a quick demonstration of Aldoa, I'm going to sort of break down 4 different, I'd say like key components of data management software that we are familiar with here at Aldoa and that we see on the market. And that is really field data collection and collecting data in the field with mobile forms. We can jump into sort of geolocation data. We can jump into actual final document generation, and then the LIMS, or the laboratory side of things. And I'm just going to highlight some questions, some thoughts that you should be having, and the pros and cons of different solutions that are available. So let's start with field data collection. This is obviously a huge topic nowadays. It was sort of the first, I'd say, paper to digital transition that's happening. Before we talk about paper maps and other things, it's really the clipboards, the rain or shine pen and notepads, and moving everything digitally has some considerations. The first one is how customizable are the mobile forms. If you're going to ask technicians to collect data on a mobile device, you really want to replicate their workflows of what they're doing today, so there's not a huge training curve and there's not a lot of complexity added. So can you conduct density tests and boring logs and more on a mobile device or a tablet? Is it very simple to add photos and notes and timestamps and signatures? And that sort of goes into the second point of ease of use as well. We've heard of some companies in the space, geotechnical engineering firms, who adopt a solution and then they learn that field technicians, in order to fill out, let's use a soil compaction test as an example, they have to do 3 different forms at the same time. They have their compaction test results in one form, then they have to close it out, open up a form for like their narrative or their description of what's happening on the property, and then a third form for photos. And if that's the case, you might want to stick with Excel or pen and paper on your iPhone, or find a solution that can do all 3. So ask these questions before you're in implementation, right? The third one here, I label it nice to haves. I think they are a little bit more than nice to haves, but it's sort of in this world of, we're talking about remote areas. If you're doing field work off the grid, consider if the solutions you're evaluating can accommodate poor connectivity. Maybe there's speech to text components when your hands are, covered in latex gloves and dirt and soil, right? So ask those questions ahead of time before you get in deep into implementation. The second piece that I'm going to go into is on the geolocation side of things. So there's a lot of different solutions on the market here. Some built specifically for geotechnical engineers. Other are just built, mapping protocols that are used for a variety of different industries. The big one here is just how do you want your field technicians and your office managers to track your geolocation data? Is it on site plans? Is it on sort of Google Maps, ArcGIS, or mapping layers? Is it paper site plans? Is it digital site plans? Because a lot of different solutions have a lot of different options for this. Here at Aldoa, we sort of leaned into digital site plans because so many of our customers were collecting data on pen and paper, right? They have a big site map. They would plot a sampling or a drilling location. And then when they go back to the office, they would scan that document into their computer versus just having everything digitally and being able to query on that digital mapping interface. And again, there's a lot of different layers to this. Is Google Maps sufficient? Do you need ArcGIS or another GIS location-based software? Ask those questions and understand what functionality these companies have. And the third one, which is something that we hear all the time as well, is we work with a lot of geotechnical engineers who they'll say, man, I know I did a project a quarter of a mile away from this 10 years ago, and I just can't find any of the data. I did compaction, I did borings, I did whatever it may be, and I know that that data would help me stay informed and make better decisions, but I don't know where it is. It's in some file that was deleted or just lost. So this comes back into the fragmentation side of things, but do the software solutions you're evaluating enable you to query across your database, not just with numbers, but also on a mapping interface. I think that's really important. Jumping into sort of the final reports and the document generation, and again, I think there's probably some different personas on this live stream right now. We might have some field technicians, we might have some professional engineers, we might have some owners and managers and sort of C-suite, right, who are looking for visibility. Now we're shifting sort of away from the field operations into actually how these final documents are being generated, right? And there's a few key things here. Number one, and this is I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I can't stress how important it is. There is this really fine line between compliance and flexibility, right? You need to comply with the standards or else you are going to get in trouble. I think everyone knows that. However, you also want to be able to tweak layout of your documents, right? Do I want, my logo in the top left, in the top right? Hey, I have a customer who demands me to put a internal job number reference on that report, and I purchased a software that is so inflexible that I'm still doing things in Word and Excel, right? We hear that all the time. So really understand how much flexibility there is with your final reporting. And looking past the final report, there's all of the sort of workflow side of things, right? Can you see a list of pending approvals? Is it easy to sign multiple documents at once? Can you track the revision history of documents? We hear that all the time. Really understand it's not just that final document, it is the whole process of getting there in the first place. And then the third piece here is just client-facing capabilities. We all know our clients pay us, that we have to keep them happy. So how easy is it to send them documents? Are you downloading PDFs? A lot of our customers just actually like to download the PDF and attach it to an email, but can you create a client portal, right? Right now we're building a pretty in-depth client portal for just messaging, revision history, et cetera. Excuse me. Some companies don't have that, so just keep that in mind. The last piece here is on the LIMS side of things. And again, I know that a lot of companies may be listening to this talk right now. You might not have your own in-house dedicated lab. And I think that's why sometimes LIMS solutions aren't included in this offering. We often find, like I said, that there are solutions that are built for field and office teams, and then they might say they do lab work, and when you really dig in, they don't. Make sure the solution you're evaluating, if the LIMS side of things is important to you, is actually all in one. And within the LIMS side of things, there's lots of different, slices of that. You can do, strictly for soils labs. You can do aggregates, materials, concrete, and asphalt, right? We know of some systems that are really good for soils labs, but when it comes to compressive strength of concrete, there is no solution for that. That is staying in Excel. And again, the big trend here is purchasing a solution, thinking that you are going to get off Excel, and then doing 50% of your work in Excel because those solutions don't work for you. Ask those questions up front. And again, I've touched on a few of these, so I'm going to go through this page really quickly. Just consider the field to lab interconnectivity. When I jump into the demo, I'm going to give the example of Proctor's, but understand that the data that is generated in your lab is useful for field techs and vice versa. So those shouldn't live in separate systems, right? And then the last piece, similarly to the reporting I was just talking about of sort of working through the chain and tracking approvals and document revision history, same thing for sample management and test management, right? Can you track the life cycle of samples? Can you get notifications? Can you stay ahead of their workload? So I wanted to jump into Aldoa for a little bit. I'm going to keep this, personally, my attention span nowadays, maybe it's the Zoom life or the Microsoft Teams virtual life, around 40, 45 minutes is as far as I usually go before I drift off. I'm going to try and keep this to like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and just wanted to sort of jump into what an example of modern data management can look like for geotechnical firms, right? And so you should see my screen right now shifting to Aldoa. This is Aldoa. This is our platform that we built specifically for geotechnical engineers, geologists, materials testing firms, some environmental firms use us as well. And I'm going to walk through sort of, I'd say, the life cycle of a project from giving out that initial dispatch or scheduling assignment all the way to tracking projects, creating custom dashboards, generating final documents for, I'll probably do a soil compaction test, looking at Proctor's and Atterberg limits all in one place, right? So first things, you can see we have a Google Maps integration. You can query upon all of your projects on a map interface. You can also just look at them in a list, right? I'm going to jump into a project. This is the Brooklyn Partners Redevelopment Site 8, which is a geotechnical project for a redevelopment and rezoning of an old industrial facility. First things first, just sort of jumping in with site plans. We built this really cool feature that enables you to actually upload site plans. So you can see here, I am doing this all from scratch. Fingers crossed, everything is working. I can upload site plans. If you have multiple pages, you can decide which plans you want to update. But again, now I have a digital version of any PDF site plan that lives within my application. And I can actually plot points on this site plan based on different layers of subgrade, base grade, utility trench, etc., all in one location. So no more paper maps, no more scanning documents. And this alone saves teams a lot of time, right? I'll come back to this, but really simple to get your site plans in here. Let's start from the beginning. Let's say, it's Tuesday the 9th. I am going to assign out work. Let me delete this one and I'll assign out new work to myself, right? So it's Tuesday the 9th. Obviously, maybe this happens the night before, but I'm going to come in. Adam is one of my staff engineers, my field technician. I want him to start work at 2 p.m. Working for this Brooklyn Partners redevelopment site. And he's going to do field density testing. And it's going to be field density testing, leave whatever notes for 8 hours. Sorry, long day. And I'm going to add this time, right? So we've built a whole notification system as well. So you have to actually accept that time as a technician. But for the sake of brevity, I am going to try and make this quick. And if you see this, I just shrunk my screen on my computer to sort of emulate what this looks like when you're on your mobile device, right? So you can see I'm on my mobile device and immediately right front and center, I can see the event details that I've been assigned. It's this Brooklyn Partners redevelopment site. I get to see the notes that my project manager or my assignee left me. I know I have to do field density testing, and all of the forms that are associated with that assignment are immediately available. So you don't have to do any thinking. You don't have to track anything down. You can see here, here's my daily field density report. I can actually even see proctors and curve types and soil types immediately available in the screen itself. And you can see here, this is a form that we set up with one of our customers. This is fully customizable, right? If I want general location of fill to be further down on the page, if I want it to be gone completely, very easy to do, right? So this is just some work that we filled out. And again, here's my actual sampling results. So my test numbers, my locations, elevation, all of these, selecting your comp curves, your curve numbers, moisture content. We have auto-calculating fields as well. So for relative compaction, TDD divided by the maximum dry density times 100, you can sort of define all of your variables so that there is no real critical thinking required for your field technicians other than the work that they're doing. And this really comes back to sort of ease of use. We want to make this very simple to get your data into a centralized database, right? You can attach photos, etc. Rather than filling this all out together, I'm going to cheat a little bit and go back to a form that's filled out. Let me jump back into the desktop view, and I'll go back into this Brooklyn Partners, and I'll jump into this form. This is my daily field density report. And you can see this is all filled out. I have all the information I need. I have photos, etc., description of the earthwork. And one of the really cool things, the reason I uploaded that site plan before, is just when you're in the field, you can actually add locations on those digital site plans. So let's say compaction testing location 2, you can actually define if it's a retest as well. So if you have a failing test, you can retest it. I can dictate which layer it was on. And now I'm going to select a point on my map. Let me zoom in. It's going to be right here, right? So you can see, you can drag and drop, leave notes, comments, etc. Save this, close it out. And now you can actually plot on those digital site maps where you are performing your compaction tests or any tests that you are doing in the field, right? Really cool stuff. Now, once this form has already been filled out, right? Again, you can submit it, you can get it signed, you can send it off to different sort of parties in your company. But I just wanted to show off that you can also just export this document and you can fully define how you want these documents to look, right? So the way I've set this up is that I have my company logo in the top left. I dragged and dropped all the fields exactly where I want it to. And in one form, I've combined all of my narrative work, all of my sampling test results, and my photo log, so I can very easily get this in front of clients. And you can imagine if you have a field technician who's filling this out, I can very quickly get their data, send this off for review in one day if necessary. A lot of times, and we talk to a lot of customers who obviously seeing all of your test results in for one day or for one activity is really important, but you might want to look at test results across 10 different days or maybe 10 different projects or 10 different lots, right? And that's where these dashboards come into play. So one of the things that we've built out is the ability, again, to create these custom dashboards that enable you to query a central database to pull any sort of results you'd like. So I'll just jump into the density test one. I think there's probably some wonky data in here, right? Don't pay too much attention to the MDD numbers because a lot of those fields weren't filled out. But as you can see here, I can query across all of my test results. I can change the page size to be however I want. If I wanted to run it across multiple projects, I can do the same thing from a global view and go into my density test. And here we'll also include the project name and the project number across all of my different projects, right? But I wanted to show one other really cool thing of here is that, again, having a central database, very important for queryability, both on a geolocation basis, on a just numbers or database basis. You can think of this as Excel on steroids. And one of the steroids that I'm talking about is, let's say I want to do a summary table of some different density tests, right? I can export this into a CSV, but I can also export it just into a PDF. And this is one of the really cool things you can do throughout the application is, yes, we are going to have some standard ASTM AASHTO compliant forms that live in the system, but you can also template your own forms. You can drag and drop as you wish, and you can decide exactly how you want these summary tables to look. So this is a really big draw for a lot of our customers of just having full autonomy over your data and the reports that you're sending. I'm going to do one last piece, keep it really short, maybe 5 minutes extra, and talk about sort of the lab side of things. And again, if I go into the field density report that I was just showing, we have the ability to sort of define curve numbers or comp curves or proctors when you're in the field. So I can say I'm going to use my reference curve number 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. I could also add a new soil type. And let's say this is a sample that I'm going to have to bring back to the lab to calculate maximum dry density, optimal moisture content. So I can say soil ID 5. I can say this is on site. And I'm going to leave everything else. I'll do, brown, silty, clay. I'll leave, obviously, MDD and optimal moisture content blank because I do not have that, right? And now, once that has been recorded and the field technician is sort of communicating to the lab, this is a sample that's going to be done, the lab can actually come in, add a new soil proctor, and use that predefined data source as the basis for the proctor, right? So you can see all of the information that was collected by that field technician about this sample is auto-populated. Also, all of the project information, client, etc., is auto-populated as well. I'm not going to fill out a full proctor right now, given the time, but I'll show you one that's filled out. So this is, again, we have customers who like to combine ASTM D698 and 1557 into a single report, the modified and standard proctor. And you can see here, you can get pretty in the weeds here. This is really a full limb system. We can go as deep as, sort of determining the polynomial best fit equation for the curve, right? But you can see here, I am calculating, sort of moisture content and maximum dry density. And when I am submitting this, when I'm ready and finished with my analysis, I can actually define the comp curve that is used for soil compaction testing for my field technicians. So again, this is a really good example of the interconnectivity between your lab, your office, your field technicians, right? All of the data should flow seamlessly between different pieces of the company and the organization. I am going to pause there. I think that was a pretty decent overview of Aldoa, and just wanted to again give you sort of a understanding. And look, I am acknowledging I just went into a bit of the software that I'm responsible for. There are a lot of solutions on the market today, right? Do your homework, see what's out there. There's a lot of really powerful stuff, and for the first time, there is software that's built for geotechnical engineering firms, right? That is not always the case. I think 10 years ago, yeah, we started to see some shift of paper forms to tablets and mobile devices, but for the first time, we're seeing really powerful purpose-built software. So I would definitely suggest seeing what you can find out in the market. And if you have any questions about Aldoa, obviously, please reach out to us at any time. You can book a demo at aldoa.com or shoot me an email at adam@aldoa.com.
Very cool, Adam. Thank you. It's a great overview. If you have any questions, as Adam noted, just add them to the chat window here, and we'll get a look at those and ask as many of them as we can to Adam. I got a question to kick us off here. Where does the name Aldoa come from?
Yeah. So I was hoping you would not ask that, but I'll give you the real answer, which is twofold. I'll stop sharing this as well. When we first started the company about 4 years ago, we thought we were going to go pretty deep into the environmental consulting and remediation world. And there was a famous environmental conservationist, Aldo Leopold. So we took his first name as a bit of inspiration. But I will say the truthful answer is that if anyone here has started a company before or built websites before, it is very hard to find a 5-letter URL with a .com ending that is available. So we wanted that 5-letter URL and easy to remember, hopefully, and easy to type out. And it didn't cost us tens of thousands of dollars to buy it.
Good deal. Appreciate the honesty there. It's tough for a startup. You can't afford to buy the URLs there.
It is. You got to bootstrap your way.
Hey, we got a question here. You were talking about the client portals and such. They were curious, how extensive do those portals get? Does Aldoa and the portal allow for things like billing or sharing other documents that were generated outside of the lab testing or the field testing? Yeah,
so great question. And I'll give the answer again, not full advertisement for Aldoa, but everything across the spectrum. There are companies that all they do is client-facing portals, right? And we can get pretty in-depth of that. We like to make a joke about sort of like if anyone's ever ordered pizza from Domino's before or anything, you have that pizza tracker that says, hey, your pizza's been put in the oven, it's on the way, etc. So, there are some really cool features you can build out to give a lot of sort of transparency to your clients. But to your point, what we're building out in the client portal right now personally is the ability to do basically everything, to have a two-way messaging system, to drop off documents, to give status updates, etc. I think a lot of companies have leaned into this. Some might have a very light version where it's just like a distribution list. So on a project, you say, for deliverables, who am I sending these to, etc. And for a lot of companies, that works. And like I mentioned, some firms just like to have a PDF and put it in an email and send it and have visibility into that exact process. But yeah, I think some clients, hopefully I don't step on anyone's toes, some clients are more sticklers than others. So definitely depends of how much flexibility you're looking for.
Good deal. So Sean wants to know, what's the next feature or facility that's on your development list?
Good question, Sean. We got a lot, I would say. We right now are working very hard on the boring side of things as well, just understanding that a lot of companies are making decisions around GINT sunsetting and the Bentley solutions, right? So what we've really been leaning into at first is, not just soil borings, but having a full platform for all of the work that a geotechnical or material testing firm does. But again, soil borings have some complications, but it's just another form. It's another data that you're collecting on site. So we would love, and we're in the process of, before the end of the year, having soil borings available into this platform as well.
Good deal. That's a great way to segue into a shameless plug from my part here. So I'm going to make a pitch for DIGS right now. It's the Data Interchange for Geotechnical and Geoenvironmental Specialists. If you're not familiar with it, check it out at digsml.org. And we're happy to have Adam and Aldoa joining us on our calls here and starting to dig deeper into DIGS and how that fits into their tools as well.
Absolutely.
Let's see what other questions we have here. So how customizable are the forms and final documents? Can you change the layout easily, or does Aldoa team need to do that on the back end?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. And that's one of the big ones when you're evaluating software. We hear all the time that, you get a form, and then if you want to change it, you have to go through like a customer success team at the software vendor and say, hey, this logo's off. I need to fix it. And I'm gonna share my screen really quickly, actually. If I jump back, Alan, can you see my screen again?
Yep, it's back.
Cool. So I just wanted to show, and again, full transparency, like we have the ability to create your templates in our system. It can be fully DIY if you want. So if I go into that daily field density report, I can actually drag and drop all the fields that I want my technicians to collect. And then I can format the document, right? So if I want to move these fields around, I can drag and drop how they look. Now, again, there is a little bit of disclaimer here of like, if you're giving people the ability to template documents and change fields, you can't guarantee compliance with standards, right? If someone's going to rip it apart and do their own thing. But again, if we provide best practices and we know people like to edit and customize their documents, that's something we feel comfortable doing, of making sure that you don't have to wait a month to actually get the document the way you want it to look.
Do you have access controls for different levels of user, login, administrative versus users that restrict some of that?
Yeah, so we have, and again, this is a pretty limited demo deployment, but you can see we have field technicians, partners, project managers. So we define everything on like a role basis. And then you can go in and actually define their security levels of whether they're unconstrained admins, whether they're managers. And this gets really in depth. You can actually build out full organizational charts and have different security groups and protocols. Because we know a lot of engineers do not want the technicians to be, editing documents or going through, payment information. Actually, Alan, you asked a question earlier of like, for the Client Connect portal, does it go into like payments as well and billing and things? So I wanted this top conversation to be mostly around just around geotechnical data management, as the title explained. But we do have the ability to track, invoices, et cetera. We have like some accounting functionality with payable invoices, receivables, et cetera, once you're doing those services. And you can also use client portals for that side of things as well.
Okay, good deal. Sean had another follow-up there. He asked, does your system generate boreholes and test pit logs? And then he was also asking about customization. I think you mentioned either company defaults or maybe there's clients that want certain things to them. I think it sounds like that's pretty customizable, but do you have the basic boreholes and test pits available now?
Give us about 30 days. We are in the process of it right now. So again, we sort of started with compaction, compressive strength of concrete, a lot of the lab work. And again, we're talking to companies that are doing dozens and dozens of soil labs. So there's quite a bit of depth there. And And we've always viewed sort of boreholes as honestly sort of like a separate product, and we weren't entirely sure why, but it seems that a lot of the companies that were focused on boreholes didn't do a lot of the other, I don't know, they purchase other packages and other software platforms for different types of services. We would like to change that and do an all-in-one approach. So, Sean, yeah, definitely stay tuned. We would love to sort of sync up in October and show you what we can do on the borehole side of things as well. And
hey, Sean's in Canada. Do you do this in French?
So I did not talk about AI at all during this conversation. I've been trying to stay away from AI. I'll say that there are very simplistic, barely AI applications. One of them is translation. So yes, it's very simple to get this into different languages.
Would you be open to consider borehole data management systems that would enable you to manage uncertainties associated with borehole numbers and locations on a site?
If I understand that correctly, it's just sort of either can we integrate with borehole data management systems, or are we doing it themselves? But the short answer, I mean, on the uncertainty side is yes. There's always sort of uncertainties, especially with paper boring logs when you're trying to see what was written down with different borehole numbers and locations, right? That's why the digital side of things is so important, of having everything very easy to edit, but also permanently digital tracking. So that is one of the pieces. I showed you like the sitemap ability to track and plot locations on those sitemaps. We can do the same exact thing with boreholes.
So it's a question that struck me as you're going through some of the demo there. Mm-hmm. Does each day density tests or concrete cylinder set tests, do they start over? Are they random numbers, or does the system keep track of your test number 375, mm-hmm. the next one's 376?
It keeps track of it, but you can turn it off or on. So we automatically, there's a setting that auto increments by 1 as you are doing different tests. Some of our customers don't like that, and for some reason they like to put in random test numbers in the hundreds or something. Maybe they want to show their clients they've done many other tests. But yes, it auto increments by default, so you don't have to keep track of all of that yourselves.
Question about your database and the dashboard side of things. I'm not sure I completely caught what you're talking about there. You can search across projects. Is there also a way of exporting a particular project or a client's data separately that they would be able to just see a report of their own information? Or can a client, maybe along those lines, log into your system and see from a dashboard just their 3 projects and not have to keep logging in and out to look at each individual one?
Yeah, so we're pretty cognizant of the fact that a lot of our customers do not want their customers to sort of have free reign of going into their database. So what I was talking about on the dashboard side is really the ability to just build sort of custom queries and make those queries tied to exports or final reports. So again, if I'm in this field data section, first I can see all the forms that have been submitted across my company, whether they've been in draft state or approved and require signature, et cetera. But I'm going to use, I know this is a geotechnical division, but I'm sure some of you are doing concrete cylinders, compressive strength, right? And a lot of the ASTM compliant reports require you to have multiple sets or multiple cylinders on one report, right? Where, for example, if you're, it's basically information that you can't generate from a single form, right? And so one of the benefits of dashboards is to be able to select different specimens or different cylinders, right? Let me do 5 actually, and actually build documents. So this is ASTM C39 to be able to include all the specimen numbers, test age dates, diameters, et cetera, across different forms. So again, the point of the dashboards isn't really client facing. It's more so compiling information that lives in different forms or across different projects.
So on that note, if I were a project manager at a big company, would I be able to create a dashboard, or how would I go into saying, okay, just show me my 5 projects that I need to pay attention to?
Absolutely, yeah. So you can create custom dashboards. You can have dashboard names. You can select sort of the data sources that you're pulling from. So let's say you're only focused on concrete, you're only focused on soil, borings, whatever. You can also just set permissions. So this is my list of every project that lives in the database, right? And I can actually just set permissions of, let me go in my filters and make it, I think I'm set up as a super admin in the system, so I'm not going to show it live, but I can actually switch it off to just my projects, right? So when I first log in for the first time, I don't see this huge list if I'm working at a 200-person firm of thousands of projects, right? I just see the projects that are important for me at that given time.
Cool. I think that's all the questions we have from the audience. Adam, do you have any last minute thoughts or words? Or
no, I'm just happy to get the chance to talk in front of everyone. I know that this is a really up and coming subject, and we're starting to get a lot more momentum towards digital solutions. I would say if anyone wants to pick up the conversation, A, first of all, thanks for the questions, but B, shoot me an email, adam@aldoa.com, or just go to our website of www.aldoa.com and book a conversation, and let's talk about how we can be helpful for your business.
Excellent. I think you're right. You're hitting the market at the right time. It's a lot of digitalization happening across the industry. And with that, check out Aldoa, check out digsml.org.
Shout out to Diggs as well.
Plug. And I see Brad's back, so Brad's probably about to tell us some final closing comments as well.
That's the only substantive thing I ever have to offer on our live streams, Alan. So every now and then you might catch me moderating one of these things, but that's only under duress. So, Adam, thanks a lot for running through everything. Great job. And Alan, of course, fantastic moderation. We appreciate it. And we're happy to be able to work with Aldoa, and hopefully we see a lot more of you guys, and the community sees a lot more of you guys going forward. We would love that. For our viewers, especially those who ask questions today, thanks for sticking with us. And putting questions in the chat may seem like a small thing, but it really adds a lot to the interactivity of these events. So we do appreciate the contributions of our viewers today. And for our viewers, if you liked what you saw, and I always say you probably did because you're here at the end, again, click like, subscribe, get notifications, and we let you know every time we post something to the YouTube channel. Our next live stream is in just 48 hours. We'll be back with the third and final live streamed Cross USA lecture of 2025. Our lecturer this year is, of course, Richard Bathurst from the Royal Military College in Canada. And his topic this Thursday, and I got to click back so I can read this thing because it's a tongue twister, is modeling of reinforced fill over a void problem. I screw that up every time. Nailed it because I read it off the page. You can register for that and all of our upcoming live streams, including Terzaghi Day, which is now less than a month away, at our Eventbrite page. So you should get over there and do that. Our producer today was Aurora Flieger. Thank you again, Adam. Thanks, Alan, for being with us and going through all this. I hope you guys had a good time.
It's a great time, Brad.
Another Geo-Institute live stream very soon.